Well, good evening and welcome to the Tumwater Candidates Forum. This is the first of 3 forums being sponsored by the Olympian and TCTV. Tonight we are in Tumwater to talk with school board and council candidates. Next week we'll be in Lacey, and 2 weeks from tonight we'll be in Olympia for those election forums. So we're going to start tonight with our school board candidates. And we have with us Kim Reichdahl and David Brastow. So the format for tonight is we're going to ask all of our candidates to give an opening statement, and then we have questions from our audience. And after we finish with the school board candidates, we'll be moving on to the council candidates. So here we go. We'll start with Kim Reichdahl.
Okay.
And the first question for the opening statement is just tell us why you're running and why you think you're best qualified for this position.
Okay. Well, first I want to thank the Olympian and TCTV for having us. It's a great opportunity to reach out to the community of Tumwater. I am Kim Reichdahl, and I am running for the Tumwater School Board because, in a nutshell, I truly believe that education is the most important job on the planet, and that we must do everything we can to educate and provide a quality education for the students in our schools. I believe that a quality education not only impacts our students, but it impacts our community. And through quality schools, we attract business and we attract residents to the area that allow us to continue to build and grow and develop and become a world-class community to live in. So as far as my qualifications, I have dedicated my whole professional life to education. I have been a teacher in the classroom for 3 years and have been a high school counselor for 12. I have seen firsthand the impact that education has on a student's life, the impact that a quality education can have on a family, and also the impact that it can have on our community. And I truly believe that I would bring a unique perspective to a great board of dedicated citizens who are here to do everything they can to make sure the Tumwater schools are continuing to provide that quality education for our students. I am also the parent of 2 young children sitting over there. My son Carter is in 2nd grade, and my daughter Kennedy is in kindergarten at Michael T. Simmons. And so I am now getting the breadth of perspective in our public education system from elementary all the way through high school, because of course my high school or my professional life has been all at the high school level. But I am now getting to see more and more how many wonderful things we are doing at the elementary level as well. And I look forward to the opportunity to work with a board that is doing a fantastic job of moving our schools forward, and I would like to continue to help our schools evolve and continue to offer the quality education that they already are performing.
All right, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
And over to Dave Brastow.
Thank you. My name's Dave Brastow. I've been a resident of the area here since 1990. I was born and raised in Seattle, so I haven't moved all that far. And of course, I came down here to go to Evergreen, expecting to be here only a couple of years. And then I met my wife, and then we had 2 kids, and I'm still here, quite well entrenched into the community. All my life, I've also been keened in on the idea that education is going to be the salvation of everything that we are trying to do on this planet. It's a global world. It's completely changing between now and my parents, who are also older parents. I mean, my mother went to school in a covered wagon in Kansas. I've got a late start at the children, but when we did have our kids, I became the stay-at-home parent, so I've been quite active in their education ever since preschool through the kindergarten Mariah Arts for one of them, actually for both of them. And I now have a son in high school who's doing Running Start. I have had a not active area, haven't had a lot of activity in the educational system per se, other than just participating, but I have had a lot of activity in research in the educational community, in employing people that are coming out of our educational system. And I've worked in all kinds of different areas of endeavor, from die maker in a swizzle stick factory to electrical assembly to 15 years in research at NOAA as a computer analyst programmer. And I think these things would help bring a different perspective than we have currently, although I think everything's working well. So I'm being waved at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And let's get right to the questions, and we'll go right back to you, Dave.
Okay.
The mission of the Tumwater School District is to provide continuous student learning in a caring environment. So how will you, as a board member, measure progress towards that mission?
That's one of the difficult things right at the moment to measure. There's all the standards from the state and the federal guidelines that have to be met in order to get your funding. To me, the real success is seeing how the kids integrate into the community, how interested they are in pursuing other interests, maybe even outside of the community. Just if we're doing our job correctly, they're going to be interested in something, and they're going to pursue that, and they will use the tools that we provide to go out and just do things with it. We get to see the excitement of their learning and their tool using. And as far as integrating that with numbers that you have to show to other people, that is a difficult issue, and one that the failed, in my opinion, No Kid Left Behind program is going to be addressed very shortly.
Okay, thank you. Kim?
So the mission of the Tumwater School District of continuous learning in a caring, engaging environment, which was recently added, I believe is showcased in a lot of ways in terms of the data that we are able to look at with student achievement and student progress. We have obviously a lot of recent attention in education reform on dropout rates and retention of students within our schools. One of the things that we can look at is how well are we keeping our student population engaged in our school system, so that we can see that we are providing that caring environment, that engaging environment that is the mission of the school district. We look at student achievement in a lot of ways, but we also can be looking at the support system within our schools. How are we meeting the needs of the whole child, not just the academic needs, but the personal and social needs? Are we addressing things like bullying and other things in our schools that can help us to make sure we are providing that caring environment? And so I think there's a lot of different factors we can look at when we address the issue of the mission of the district.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we'll go back right back to you, Kim. With only two candidates, it's
That's okay.
It's going to be like that.
We're ready.
Tell us what school and classroom activities you've been involved with, and during the last year, and perhaps what professional or community organizations that you're involved with that are engaged in education.
So just within the last year, or just
Yeah,
professionally?
Yeah.
Okay. Because as I mentioned, I was a teacher for 3 years, and of course I've been in the schools for the last 12 as a school counselor. So within the context of that job, I am in the classroom significantly. In fact, just yesterday, got to spend 3 periods working with our junior class on career and college readiness curriculum that we try to implement in our schools. I also have been fortunate enough on a couple of occasions to volunteer at Michael T. Simmons within my son's classroom, and hopefully my daughter's classroom this year, if I can work that in as well. And I'm also serving as the government relations chair for the Washington School Counselor Association. So within the context of that role, I do find myself up on the Capitol Hill quite often, basically trying to advocate for the profession that I work in, and for the ability of our school system to retain school counseling positions to meet the needs of our children on personal, social, emotional, and academic levels.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, I can't compete with all of that, but I have been active in the schools, in classrooms. I took courses in college and tutoring, and tutored mathematics at Bellevue Community and North Seattle Community College. And of course, when I've had my own kids, I go in. I taught Spanish to some bunch of second graders. That was an experience. More recently, I have worked with some of the classes at, I believe it's Lakes Elementary School, helping their, again, math tutoring, which was extremely rewarding. They gave me 3 kids that were supposedly not doing very well, and it brings up the point that the teachers just don't have time to learn everything about how to teach all these different subjects they're required to teach. And a person coming in that knows an alternate way of presenting the information, the kids will go, oh, I see. And that was just really wonderful. I enjoyed that. And I think that's indicative of a lot of the problems we have with the district, is students needing alternate viewpoints.
Good, thank you. So back to you. In your opinion, is the Tumwater School District doing a good job in weeding out underperforming teachers?
That's a difficult question, because first you have to get into the idea of what's underperforming. I mean, of course, there's all the numbers that are presented, and if that's what you're basing things on, I don't actually know. I haven't. Likewise, though, you have to look at how successful they are at getting kids motivated, besides just the numbers. I've, in my past, had teachers that were quite diverse in their methodologies. They may not have done very well number-wise, but the kids were motivated in the class. This is a tricky question, and I have been going to board meetings now since July, is when I could fit them into my schedule, and I'm really impressed with the quality of the board and the administration. This is one of the things that in a 4-year term you're just going to have to learn how to deal with.
Okay, thank you. Kim, over to you.
I think this is also, like Dave said, this is a tricky issue, and it's certainly one that's at the forefront of education right now as we look at the performance of our schools and our students, and trying to figure out how to ascertain what is it that is maybe not meeting those students' needs. And I don't know that we can lay all the responsibility on the teachers. Do I believe that there are some things we can look at in terms of evaluation? Sure. And that's why there is a pilot program out there right now that's being sponsored by OSPI that is looking at performance and different ways to evaluate our staff. But I think in addition to looking at the teachers, we need to look at what other services are we offering our students to meet their needs. Because obviously we need to be partners with the parents, we need to be partners with the staff, and we need to be partners as a community in looking at how are we meeting all the needs of our students. So I would want to work with my colleagues on the board to make sure that as a district, we have programs in place to meet all the needs of our students so that we can look at teachers as one aspect of the entire picture.
Okay, thank you. And back to you.
Okay.
The Tumwater School District is exploring the idea of moving 6th graders to middle schools. Do you support this idea, and what do you think are the pros and cons of reconfiguring the middle schools?
You know, it's always interesting when you look at the age differential in a particular school and whether or not a certain age group should be moved up or whether they should be retained in our elementary schools. And you have to look at the development of the students and whether or not they need to be pushed into that upper level or be the big kids on the block continuing to stay at the elementary level. I know the board is doing a lot to analyze this issue. They've been taking community interests as well as staff and I hope student interest as well to take a look at the issue. And I don't know that I have an opinion just yet because I haven't seen all the information that they've gathered. And so I would definitely be interested in looking at what they have discovered in their explorations of the issue and work with my colleagues to figure out if we can ascertain what is the best way to maximize our school usage and to continue the development of our students in the most appropriate place. I've seen it in both ways in the districts I've worked in, because I've been in 4 different districts in my professional life. And so I think there's pros and cons to each.
All right,
But really,
thank you.
my biggest interest would be whether we would be meeting the needs of the students best.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Well, I agree that it's the students that count most in this. But I do have a little personal experience because my daughter was going to the North Thurston School District when they've been phasing in 6th migration up to the middle school. And there are facets of that that need to be addressed when you do it so that there isn't a big problem. Again, there are ongoing studies looking into this. My feeling is that it's a good idea, especially since we only have 2 classes currently at our middle schools, the 7th and 8th grades. And I think the diversity is important to the kids to see a wider age spread and development, encourage the older ones to help the younger ones out, and I think that's a better break. But that's just the off-the-cuff opinion, and it does need to be examined very carefully.
Okay, thank you. And back to you. What will your instructions be to the superintendent when the district enters into contract negotiations with the teachers and other unions?
Well, the first instruction would be that we have to make sure that we cooperate and work together for the best possible outcome for the kids. It's not easy. Having sat in on the board meetings, I know the numbers of the monetary numbers plus the legislature hasn't made this fun or easy. But I think everybody is going to have to recognize that sacrifices are going to have to be made, and it's going to have to be the adults that are providing this that are going to have to do it at this point. Otherwise, we're just going to have to cut elsewhere, and I don't see that it's going to be of much advantage to do that. If the people that you're cutting are going to live in the community, they have children in our schools. They're the ones that are going to suffer if we don't cooperate and try to find a good, equitable solution. And hopefully this is just going to be a short-term problem, but.
Thank you, Dave. And Kim?
Just for clarification, when you're asking for instructions that we would give the superintendent in contract negotiations, are you assuming further cuts? I mean, is that the gist of the
when
question?
the district enters into contract negotiations with the unions, teachers and other unions, what instructions would you like to give the superintendent?
Well, I think instructions for superintendents is an interesting way to put it. I would want to work collaboratively with Superintendent Kirby and the board and all the administration in looking at, when we go into contract negotiations with staff, how are we best utilizing our resources? I'm experiencing firsthand in the schools what the budget cuts have done to staffing and the increases in our class sizes and all those issues that come along with our contract negotiations. How are we going to fit in time for collaboration? Are we going to continue to do Fridays early release, or, work with the community to figure out what are the best solutions there? If we have to make additional cuts, is it going to be staff release day or student release days where staff collaborate, or how can we come up with methods that will provide us with the best possible use of our resources? Because essentially we are looking at a budget crisis again, and the potential for more cuts is there. So we need to be definitely taking a look at the entire budget and going into those negotiations with the thought in mind of how are we going to best utilize the resources we have to meet our students' needs.
Thank you. Next question. How would you develop or generate respect for the cultural and racial diversity that exists within the Tumwater School District?
Well, I think I have been so pleasantly surprised, honestly, as a parent, to see that diversity within my kids' classrooms. It has been fantastic to have the ability to have that interaction with different cultures, even within the context of one classroom building. And I know there are ways in which we can go about and promote the opportunity for students to share about their heritage and their cultural within the context of an educational setting. We do things in the district I work in, like an international dinner. And I think some of the schools in Tumwater have actually brought that about as well, where you invite the whole community to come in of that school and experience some of the things that go hand in hand with the students who come from different cultures. And it's a matter of making sure the students get to understand what those different cultures are like. And in understanding and in being exposed to those things, it often generates respect just in and of itself. And I really would like to see that continued and focused on in our district as absolutely.
Thank you. Dave?
I too think that the cultural diversity is a wonderful opportunity for everybody to learn about everybody else's chunk of the world.
Mm-hmm.
My family and I have traveled extensively, Europe and South and Central America, and I just relish seeing these things, things I don't know about. And in the classroom and in the schools, international dinners are nice. If we could fit them into our curriculum, encourage the teachers to utilize these things, different holidays, different celebrations at times of year, planting holidays, just whatever. It's one of the things we need in this global world is to understand how different people express themselves through their cultural dances, their music, their literature. I mean, we extol the English language literature, but we have to remember if you speak Persian or Farsi, you've got a 4,000-year-old literature that we aren't even aware of. Chinese is the same way. There's a vast amount of information there. And I'm being cut off again.
Thank you.
1 minute.
Could go
Not
forever
long
on
enough,
that.
I know.
No.
And back to you, Dave.
Okay.
How would you respond to a parent who wants the district to remove books from a school library or perhaps limit student access to certain books?
Well, I would listen to them respectfully. I would find out why they felt that way. I would, within the policies of the district, see if we can perhaps, well, actually, it's the parent's responsibility to tell the child not to take these books out of the library. I don't believe in banning books. I don't believe in banning much of anything from the kids' awareness. This is the way I've raised mine. They're quite aware of all the many facets of the world many other children aren't. But that doesn't mean they're going to run out and do these things. I'm skipping off your question. I think the parents need to regulate this. I don't believe in banning the books. There can be age appropriateness in a book, but I think that would be best served by just simply putting a note on it or having the person in charge of the library aware of the age specificity. You can't possibly have one person understand what every child's learning and awareness level is at. So really it comes back to the parent. So I believe many things have to come back to the parent.
Thank you.
Mm.
Kim?
Well, I agree with Dave. I think we would definitely need to listen respectfully to that parent's concerns and try to ascertain what it is that is the issue with that book. But I also don't believe in depriving the rest of the student body of an opportunity to learn. It goes back to the previous question, the issue of diversity, and in respecting the diversity of different books that are out there and the different literatures that we have available for our students. I would certainly hope that the teacher would work with that student and that parent to possibly provide an alternative assignment if that was really something that was, maybe against a religious preference or, something else that was a value for that particular parent. But I don't think that we would, as a district, want to go about banning books because we had a concern from an individual. I would want to work with that individual directly to figure out how to solve that problem.
Okay. Thank you. This will be the last question.
Okay.
All of our questions actually are submitted by readers of the Olympian, but this one was suggested tonight.
Okay.
So this will be the last question. So you have 90 seconds for this question, and you can answer it and then make some closing remarks. National news reports seem to suggest an epidemic of bullying in schools. What is the state of bullying in Tumwater schools, and what can be done to eradicate it?
Well, I can't speak exactly to what the state is in Tumwater until I get in there and dig in. What I can say is that there was a bill passed last year in the legislature that is asking all the school districts in the state of Washington to reevaluate their bullying policies. I can tell you from a firsthand standpoint that it is definitely evident within our schools, and I deal with students on a daily, well, not daily basis, but I do deal with students who are feeling the effects of that. And when you go back to the issue of respect and diversity, I think those are really key components of ensuring that caring environment that is the mission of Tumwater School District. We need to be looking at what is our district's bullying policy and how are we addressing that issue within each of our schools? What support systems are we putting in place? And do we have counselors or other staff who are there to help students work through those issues? Do we have any curriculum that we're bringing in to teach our kids the importance of respecting other people? So I definitely believe that as a district, we are on top of that as far as I know, but I would certainly want to delve into that because that is on the agenda for all school districts this coming year. So with that issue, I think, being answered, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity again to talk with those who are here and whoever decides to watch the program. I'm really excited by the opportunity to work with the board and for the Tumwater School District and for the community. Passion, that's all I can tell you. Education is my passion. It's what I believe in. I think it is the future for not only our individual students, but also our community, because a quality education and a quality school system attracts quality businesses and citizens to our area. And I want to help the Tumwater School District continue to evolve to meet the needs of all of our students. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. And to Dave.
I have to go back and try to remember what the question was, but regarding bullying.
Bullying.
We are in this Tumwater School District, or at least my son is, and he goes to Black Hills, and there is some bullying going on. He comes home and reports it. Fortunately, he's 6'2", so he doesn't have to suffer very much at its hands, but he sees it and he likes to intervene. There was last year the legislative and policy put forth regarding bullying. Again, I think a lot of it needs to be put back onto the kids and find out what they're doing and why they're doing it, and have their parents talk to them about it some more. There are policies at the school, of course, that say you're not supposed to, but the ratio of students to adults is a little high in the students' favor as far as being able to do things out of sight. We have to address this with the idea that they realize that this isn't a good policy, that we need to stop it, and again, like you were saying in the previous issues, of respect and finding out why you're bullying them and what you can learn from a person. My personal philosophy is there isn't anybody that I can't learn something from. Everybody knows something I don't know. And with that sort of philosophy, and if you could instill that in everybody, you wouldn't have nearly the amount of trouble. It's just one of the things we're going to have to keep on top of. I don't know what is causing this wave, but I have seen in the national press it is in our culture at the moment. I also would like to take the opportunity to thank you for having me here to be able to talk to these people and those people. And I, too, would enjoy the opportunity to help continue the work that's being done by the school board and the administration now. I think they're doing an excellent job. I have some ideas that I would like to put forward, but I would look forward to helping and being part of a good group. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for answering the questions so thoroughly, and let's give both of them a big hand. We appreciate you standing up and being willing to serve. So that was Tumwater School Board candidates, Kim Reichdahl and Dave Brastow. And now we're going to turn our attention to the Tumwater City Council. And we have races for 2 positions. And starting on my left, we have the candidates for Council Position 1, Ed Stanley and Dave Rates. And next to them are the candidates for Council Position 3, Joan Cathy and Debbie Sullivan. So we're going to follow the same format as we did for the school board candidates. So I'll ask you each to give a 2-minute opening, and then we'll get right to the questions. We'll start right here with, to my left, with Mr. Stanley. And so tell us why you're running and why you think you're best qualified for this position.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I first ran for this position in 1995. Some friends had said, well, there's an opening, you should do this. I thought, well, we'll see. And then, well, 16 years later, I'm still here. I guess I'm still here because I have a great passion for what we're doing. I'm a 5th-generation Washingtonian. My family came here before 1850. I'm a graduate of St. Martin's College and spent most of my career as a social worker, and which ergo is a problem solver. And I use those skills interactively with the community that I serve as a council member. Just recently, there's a woman in the audience tonight who had an issue with one of her neighbors that she hadn't been able to resolve, and we chatted about it, brought it to the city's attention, and the matter's now been taken care of. I guess the last 2 years have been particularly wonderful because I've been serving as mayor pro tem and acting frequently in place of the mayor at mayor's councils, other events in the community, and spending a great deal of time representing the city at events at Joint Base Lewis McCord, getting to know General Jacoby, General Scaparrotti and their staffs. The fort is due for another great increase in population, and many of them are moving our direction. And I just feel it's incumbent upon us to make them feel as welcome as possible and find out what their needs and concerns are. And Lacey seems to be getting the brunt of the population increase, but I think it's only a matter of time that those folks will start coming down our way as well. So I've done a lot to work on the intergovernmental affairs and with the Regional Planning Council, and I'll look forward to continuing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And over to you, Dave.
Well, thanks you to the Olympian for hosting this forum. And I got throughout this whole campaign, I've neglected one thing, to thank you, Ed. You've served the city of Tumwater and its citizens through 4 terms in 16 years. That's a lot of public service, and it's very commendable and very admirable. But that said, it's time that we change directions in Tumwater, and that's why I'm running for city council. You know, we can have business and industry in Tumwater and the revenue and jobs that they create to support the city. And we can have the same size stores in Tumwater that they do in Lacey and Centralia and Chehalis and elsewhere. And we can continually fund police and fire instead of waiting a decade, hitting a crisis point, and then asking for a property tax increase. You know, from the outside looking in, it would almost seem that our long-term plan a while ago was to import Olympia's traffic problem and export our businesses to Lacey. You know, it's only reasonable to expect with this happening when you got the same people on the city council that nothing's going to change. To change direction, we need a change of representation, and I am that change. I'm a true nonpartisan independent, and I want to change the attitude in Tumwater to bring more business in, to use those revenues, and quit treating the citizens of Tumwater like ATM machines when we need property tax increases. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joan.
Thank you, George. I realize you did not introduce yourself. Did you?
I can't remember if I did or not.
Well, I too want to thank you the Olympian and TCTV for hosting this tonight. And yes, I am Joan Cathy, and I have been serving as the Tumwater City Council member, woman, for the past 4 years. And I believe that this position as a Tumwater City Council member is very, very key to this entire region. And I ran for this because I have been a community member here almost 20 years and served as the campus minister at the Evergreen State College. And I enjoyed so much listening to the school board folks, since I taught high school for 10 years before that. And so education is a big part of it. And also I served as the executive director of a local nonprofit for 12 years. So as a city council person, it is very important that you have connections in the city, in the region, and that you are a leader. And you take the issues, the policies, the necessary changes that need to be made, and you don't make them all right here. It's how you relate to the community, how Tumwater is a very, very important part of a very exciting region. We are in difficult times. Tumwater is well poised and continuing to be that way, to be moving ahead and ready to move ahead as things change. I've been an integral part of the decisions that affect Tumwater citizens' daily lives and the future of what it means for us to be strong and sustainable. I'm ready to go.
Thank you, Joan. And Debbie.
Great. Thank you very much. And I really do appreciate this opportunity to speak to the community. And it's also nice to speak to the community when they're out there in the audience. My name's Debbie Sullivan. I'm running for Tumwater City Council position number 3. I feel I would bring a great deal of both business and government experience. I am currently employed with Washington State University in the Extension Energy program. But I've also been owner and partner in 2 small successful businesses, so I do have the business background also. I've been very, very active in the community. I have served for, volunteer for community services for approximately 18 years. I was served on the New Market Vocational Skills Center Office Automation and Technology Advisory Board for 5 years, currently serving on the Briggs YMC Advisory Board, and I am currently chair of the Tumwater Planning Commission. That position is chosen, chair position is chosen by their peers, and I've been selected for 4 years to hold the position of chair. Being on the Planning Commission, I'm very, very familiar with what is going on in Tumwater and a lot of the very high-level, long-term, long-range items that are going before the city. I feel this is really a good time to get involved because we need to bring another direction, another focus. I am supported by both the firefighters and the police in my candidacy, so I really do want to work with the city staff, with all different agencies, and also with bringing businesses in. We are lacking. I don't want Tumwater to continue to have this reputation of not being business friendly. We need to encourage businesses to come. We have room for them to expand, and it's time that we look at that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. So let's get right to the questions. Do you support, and we'll start with you, Debbie, going back. Do you support the council's vision for developing a town center adjacent to City Hall, or should that project be abandoned in favor of developing the brewery property?
Well, I don't think in this case it's an either or. Both of these projects I think can move forward. I think the brewery is a totally different type of project than the Tumwater Town Center. I think that we probably, as far as the Tumwater Town Center, need to maybe review a lot of the things that's going on. As some people may know, that is actually located, a lot of that is located on port property, which then creates a problem with developing or building buildings that are not going to be on property that they'll actually own. So those would be leasehold properties. There's a couple of issues that I have with that, and one, we want to make it a walkable community, but the blocks are way too large. So we need to look at redesigning to make it a more walkable area. It is going to be a hard area to develop, but the brewery property is going to be something that will be distinctly different than the Tumwater Town Center.
Thank you. Joan?
They are two distinctly different. The other thing they have in common is that they're in Tumwater, and the citizens of Tumwater are interested and access both places. When I ran 4 years ago, I talked about the possibility of the brewery property as a town center, as a gathering place, as a sense of place, and people were surprised at that, but energetic about that even 4 years ago. And I'm encouraged by the fact that we have the opportunity to look at both of those as developments for Tumwater. I think that's a unique thing for a city, to have two possible places to develop. The town center needs to be reviewed and looked at as far as how we attract people to the town center. And also that is in the path of the airport, which makes a difference. I'm also excited about the new visioning process for the brewery property.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, I do support the town center. I've read through what the Planning Commission has come up with. It's a good idea, and it's an idea a long time coming for the city and the people. The brewery, no, not so much. With the business atmosphere in Tumwater, you're going to need a company or a developer with a big bag of money to come to town to sort through that mess. And right now, when we see empty businesses, there's no one that's going to come to Tumwater with a big bag of money. They'll run into a zoning problem. They'll run into an easement problem. And the city is not very responsive to acting quickly. And these companies work on time. They have permits. They have payroll. They can't wait 6 weeks. They can't wait 4 weeks. They need to act now. So as this consulting company told us on the brewery, we're between a rock and a hard place, basically. Rather than come to Tumwater with that big bag of money, it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper to go somewhere else.
Thank you. And Ed?
I think you'll find that most people in business in the general community will tell you that Tumwater is probably the most responsive of all the cities in complying with people's requests for permits and whatever. We've taken a great step forward by doing the community visioning with the brewery, and that's going to be continuing, so that at such time as monies become available in the community, that the economy improves, that we'll be up to speed. Relative to the Old Town Center, I think that's also a great idea due to the sometime inclemency of our weather. I've often questioned the walkability aspect of this particular project, and also I think we need to review the fact that very limited, if at all, drive-throughs are going to be permitted. It's my understanding that a major bank is interested in coming in to develop that property, but obviously since it's a bank, only if a drive-through is made available. And so I think that's one area we need to revisit and possibly change.
Okay, thank you. And back to you. So while we're talking about the brewery property, what do you think the city's role should be in developing that property in the heart of the city?
Well, I think we have already done at least considerable amounts. This obviously, we don't own the property, so we can't build on it, but we can do a great deal towards assisting people with rezoning and with the old brew house, say down below the water, on the water level, with possibly expanding that road. If they're able to get some conservation futures funds through the county, it's possible that would be developed into a destination point as well. Additionally, we're working with the Lot Alliance, which I happen to chair, to secure property in that area to put another water treatment facility sometime within the next few years, which will aid greatly in this area in the ability to reclaim water.
Okay, Thank you. Dave?
Well, the city's role in developing that property, like Councilmember Stanley said, it is privately owned. As I was saying before, when that developer or that business comes to Tumwater with that big bag of money and there's a lot of roadblocks in the way, the city's role is going to be to knock those roadblocks down and make a decision quickly so that big bag of money doesn't run out while they're waiting for time. The visioning process and getting the community involved is great, but you got to remind people it's a visioning process. It's privately owned property, and we have to wait for a buyer, and we have to wait and see what happens. But we can guide that our way.
Okay, thank you. Joan?
Well, I think the visioning brewery process, visioning for the brewery, was a very, very indicative thing for the city of Tumwater to realize how involved our citizens are, what they care about, what they're willing to come and talk about, and where they are with what it means to be part of the city of Tumwater that I'm proud to represent. And the visioning brewery process is one that the consultants told us just last night. We accepted the process and passed an ordinance to move ahead. This is a beginning of something that has a big impact in this community. And I feel like what this process has done and what the city's responsibility is to keep moving ahead. What I had mentioned before is with the brewery is to stay poised for what is yet to come. And I don't know about bags of money, but I do know that we as a city can help market something that is unique and a benefit to the citizens.
Thank you. Debbie?
So with the brewery property, I know that we have looked at that several times and it's been discussed on Planning Commission. Right now it's zoned industrial, and I'm sure that's not exactly what everyone's vision is for that. So I would say that it would be appropriate to send that to the Planning Commission to look at some viable options. There's some very smart people on the Tumwater Planning Commission that have come up with some very incredible ideas for other projects. So I think with working on that and coming up with some out-of-the-box ideas, making it not set in concrete, but flexible so that when a property owner or when it does actually become developed, that they will have some of the roadblocks hopefully eliminated or easily addressed by the time that that property would want to move forward into development.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to break from the format just a little bit and see if I can get a one-word answer from you each on this question. Capital Lake, estuary, or lake? Debbie?
I myself like lake.
Lake? Joan?
I like both. Both.
Okay. Dave?
Lake.
Well, it's 3-1, lake.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go back to you, Ed, for this question. Was allowing Walmart to build in Tumwater the right or wrong decision?
At the time, there was a good deal of controversy about that, which I suppose continued over the last several years. My only objection to a Walmart and to all of those, the large box stores, was the fact that Little Rock Road, which dates back to the 1880s, was would simply be overwhelmed by traffic as a result of building them. So as a result, we had to do additional road development, which has happened in the manner of Tyee Drive, which gives a secondary access in and out of those facilities. Hopefully, as the properties develop south, Tyee Drive will continue all the way down to Little Rock to Israel Road. And the traffic's with the new additions on Little Rock Road that we've made, traffic seems to be working fine. And I think it's a great idea, and I'm hoping that we're going to get lots of sales tax revenue from all of those businesses on Little Rock Road, plus the other businesses in our community.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Well, that was another one-word answer, wasn't it? Right or wrong?
Well, I was hoping you would expound a little bit.
Okay. Well, if the one-word answer, it would be the city was right. We need competition. It's going to bring in a lot more tax revenue. and the road construction that was done along with getting Walmart in, although we can look at it and say, well, that's not going to carry us out very far in the future. It's going to have to be redone. It's a good start. It's a really good start to get that area developed and get development away from the Trosper Capitol Boulevard area and push it a little bit further south. And like Councilmember Stanley was saying, get the roads connected so we do have more than one path to get around the city.
Thank you. Joan?
So the question is was this right or wrong for the city of Tumwater?
Yes.
Well, I guess I have to be honest and say when I campaigned for office 4 years ago, I was against Walmart. And I think that if you look at Tumwater's vision and you look at what the citizens see Tumwater is about, it is not about big box stores. And I was disappointed in Walmart coming because of its displacement very early of union wage jobs in this town and in this area. And I've looked at the history of Walmart, and I do not think it was the best choice. I am for development and for taxes and sales taxes and all of those kinds of things. I think that Tumwater could have made a different and a better choice.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, last
Well,
word.
Of course, Walmart always has, I think, a very emotional impact on a lot of individuals. So I think we need to look past if it's Walmart or not Walmart. I believe it will bring other businesses to Tumwater, and it is starting to fill in what the Little Rock Road sub-area was designed to do. I believe that it'll start bringing in other viable, stable businesses into that area, and it'll also bring a mix. It'll bring the smaller stores and it will bring larger stores. We'll also see that Walgreen is now coming in. A lot of these stores and a lot of these businesses will come in like you would look in a mall. You have your anchor stores and then you have your smaller stores in between. And so it does work on that same principle. So I think it is good for Tumwater that it has come in. I think it's just that there is an emotional attachment to Walmart. If it was a different store, we wouldn't have this conversation.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the city budget. If elected, what would be your top 3 spending priorities? And what 3 areas would you look to for budget reductions? And be as specific as you can.
Okay, I
So
take
top 3 spending priorities, top 3 areas to look at budget reductions if necessary.
Okay, so as we have just gone through the process of public safety is one of my highest priorities. We need to make sure that citizens are protected in this community. We also need to make sure infrastructure is a priority. We need to make sure our roads and all of the infrastructure is run and maintained properly. I think that some of the other areas that, and then staffing as appropriate. I know that there's a lot of businesses that need to cut staffing, and I am not sure if Tumwater is at that point. It's very likely it will be. I think we need to make smart decisions as it comes forward. Some of the things that we need to really look at for cutting are things that are not necessary. We need to maybe bring in more citizen involvement in volunteer programs, such as parks. We could probably cut back on some things in parks that maybe the citizens in this community can do, like have schools or community service cleaning the parks or doing other things. We need to think outside the box to help infill some of these gaps. And I think just going through and reviewing, seeing what might be wasteful or not needed or can be delayed bringing in until a later date if it's not essential. But I think we need to prioritize on essential services.
Okay, thank you. Joan?
I think definitely we need to keep our promises and spend the money that will be in our budget from the increased property taxes for public safety. for the staffing of our North End Fire Station, which was the highest priority on my list when I ran last time and this time also. Public safety, I think that our plan for infrastructure, for roads, for the improvement of Capitol Boulevard is a very important piece of it. And I think that people are important. We have a very dedicated staff, and we have done a lot of leaving of positions vacant. And so we're like they're saying in government, we're getting down to some looks at people's bare bones. And so I would want to continue to spend to maintain a high and adequate level of staffing for the city. As far as cuts are concerned, it seems like parks, recreation, youth programs, those types of things are the ones that we see that we could cut because we don't put them down as essential services. I know that our Public Works Department and our parks are already stressed and strapped for money. And so I'm not going to propose 3 cuts. That would mean we need to look at the spending priorities first and then see where we would go.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, of course, the spending priorities, public safety, number one. It's been neglected, and we're trying to play catch up. Mayor Comet's done a very good job formulating a plan where we don't paint ourselves into a corner again, hopefully, if it's handled right. And of course, roads and public works. Somebody, when I was out doorbelling, made a comment that they're going to take the Capitol Boulevard signs down and replace them with Quilt Boulevard because it's patchwork. That has to be taken care of. Yeah, that is the face of the city. That's what people see when they come into our city. The areas for reductions, it comes down, to use an analogy, it comes down to your household. You got wants and needs. You can't cut your needs. Absolutely not. You got to look at your wants. And which leads me into why we're building these high maintenance roads. The roads that we have are very high maintenance. Instead of asphalt, we have a stone inlay for a crosswalk. A year later, the stone inlays start coming out and separating. We got high maintenance islands. We got high maintenance shoulders. All that takes a lot of money from Public Works. Well, if we didn't have that high maintenance areas, that money wouldn't even be spent. It would be a non-issue.
Okay, thank you. And finally,
Well,
Ed.
certainly, to echo everyone else, public safety certainly is at the top of my list, particularly emergency services and the North End, particularly since the North End, the Hill, and West Olympia, West Tumwater have been the area of our greatest growth. And also with our aging population, some of us know about that, that it's going to be requiring more and more emergency vehicles and personnel just to save people in their homes when emergencies arise. As far as cutting things, do you really cut things, or you kind of spite your face? I think I would increase spending along with the Visitors Convention Bureau to continue to make our area a destination point for tourists. Clean industry, they come, they spend money, they go home. And I guess lastly, as this building and other buildings need retrofitting and upgrading, I would immediately proceed ahead with plans to go with solar panels and other environmentally sensitive upgrades that, in essence, perhaps they cost more initially, but ultimately will save us, the city, and also save a great deal of energy.
Okay, thank you. One idea that's been floated to save money in our greater Olympia area, I guess you might say, is the idea of consolidation. And do you support or oppose the idea of consolidation of some municipal services between Tumwater, Lacey, and Olympia? And if so, what services do you think are ripe for consolidation?
Well, interestingly enough, I think the very first meeting that I went to after being elected, meeting people from all the jurisdictions, and they went around the room and said, well, what might be your goal? And I said, why don't we consider the possibility of consolidating the three cities, since probably only a few engineers and planners know where the boundaries are anyway, and a hush fell over that room like you can't believe. I mean, like I was out murdering children at the thought that we would consolidate the three cities. So, and that's been thought of in other areas around the state, probably the country, to little avail. I do think, however, that we do a lot of things regionally right now with Regional Planning Council, Interstate Transit, the animal shelter, to name but a few. And I think we need to move ahead and at least look at the possibility of consolidation of fire services for certain, and possibly police, and see where we go from there. And I don't know if consolidation of three cities is ever going to be an option, but I think that's something we might want to look at as we proceed towards more regionalism in our dealings with other communities.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, that's a good question, because while doorbelling, more than one person has told me that they're tired of Tumwater being Olympia's backyard. So the consolidation issue, I don't really see happening. It's not going to gain momentum, and it's not going to gain any kind of popular support whatsoever. The consolidation of services, it's been brought up a number of times, the consolidation of fire districts, consolidation of fire departments. That might work, but it's going to have to be worked out between the chiefs, between the cities, between the fire districts, and of course the firefighters' unions. All these things have to be considered. As far as the other services, like police, no. I gather the impression that people in Tumwater like Tumwater, people in Lacey like Lacey, and people in Olympia like Olympia. What would we name it? Tamale Lacey?
Thank you. Joan?
Dave, Thurston County. Thurston County. No. We do have some very good consolidated services in this area. Thurston Regional Planning, Animal Services, some of the things that Mr. Stanley has addressed. I think as we move forward and we realize that many of us serve on a variety of regional committees, that conversation needs to happen, especially in these particular times we're in, and we have no idea how far out it's going to be, that we need to be looking at consolidating expenditures, as well as making statements about we're all in this together. And I think that looking at the consolidation of emergency services is a good idea. We're already sharing a lot. Tumwater is backed up by Olympia often. We pay back. So there's a good look at that. I think parks would be a bit more difficult, but that conversation has started a wee bit. So I'm for looking at regional leadership and sharing.
Thank you. Debbie?
I would be open to the idea of consolidating some services, but not the cities themselves. I think each one has its own unique flavor to it, and I think, again, people do like belonging to one of the three cities, and I think there is some very distinct. There are intergovernmental agreements between the different services, so as far as expanding that, we may even want to do it even further, including the urban growth areas. So, not even discounting having the county involved in that in some areas, as far as the urban growth areas of all three of the cities may want to look at that also. But it would all depend upon what kind of agreement it would be. I wouldn't say blanket yes, but I would take it into consideration for the if it was under the right circumstances.
Okay, thank you. And right back to you. Do you support or oppose a fish hatchery on the Deschutes River? And do you think that should be a funding priority for the city of Tumwater?
So are you talking about the fish hatchery that they're proposing down by Pioneer Park?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I actually think that would be a very good asset for the community. However, should Tumwater pay for it? I'm not so sure that would be appropriate. I think that this would need to come from Fish and Wildlife I think that there needs to be a huge state investment because this isn't something that is just to the benefit of the citizens of Tumwater. However, I do know that it could be a good attraction for tourists, and I know that that would be a good educational process. I would really be cautious of how much the city of Tumwater would spend as far as revenue and resources into it, but I think there could be a partnership there.
Thank you. Joan?
I'd love to see a fish hatchery there. I think it'd be a wonderful thing. I think it'd be an asset to the city and to the entire region. I agree that it needs to be partnered because we're a region. And just like partnerships for the brewery property and what can happen there, this is a shared area. I think that the fish hatchery would add to our whole parks system. It would add to our trails. It would add adventure that people would definitely come here to be part of. And I grew up fishing and around fish and streams, and I would love to see that project happen. And I think things like that need to happen in these times. I think I think it lifts people's spirits too.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, I guess I'm fortunate. I'm from South Dakota, and South Dakota does have fish hatcheries, but they are state fish hatcheries. The state bears all the costs because with fish hatcheries, generally the whole state gets the rewards for it. So I support a fish hatchery if it's going to be the state, because it'll end up being controlled by DNR or Department of Wildlife anyway. And if it's just going to come strictly from Tumwater funds and just Tumwater, I have to oppose it.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
I don't think there are Tumwater funds available to pay for it, so unless there's some pocket out there that I don't know about. Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. I've talked to people who are very avid sports people, sports fishers, and I think it's a great idea. But again, to echo the other members of the panel, I think this money needs to come from natural resources, from either state and or local fish and wildlife services. Perhaps the tribes could even take some of their excess monies and invest in that. But probably little to no financial investment on the part of the city of Tumwater and its citizens.
Okay, thank you. This next question is kind of long, so I'll just read it. In the past, developers have driven the look of Tumwater. The multiple state office buildings on Capitol Way at Tumwater Boulevard is a good example. The services weren't there to support the influx of office workers. How are you going to ensure that the council drives future development instead of leaving that job to the developers? And we're starting back with you, Ed.
Well, I think there's some remaining projects that are still in the works, and I certainly hope those continue. One of the things that I had hoped for the development of the Old Town Center and also for some of the ancillary areas is building of high-density housing. We've actually had some nibbles on that over the years, and I suspect the only reason that hasn't happened is because of the downturn in the economy. But some condominiums and or apartments have been planned for that area for many, many years, and I would encourage private development of that to bring people here who will be working here during the day and living here at night. And in fact, I even really like I think Selwood in Portland is a great example that I've seen over the years of where businesses are located on the first floor and housing is located in the second, third, and fourth floors, which I think makes just a vibrant community and one that I hope we could replicate here.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, for me, the answer is very simple. We have a planning commission to prevent this from happening. How this happened, nobody wants to own up to it. Who's going to raise their hand and say, I was responsible for that? I remember reading a lot of the planning commission notes that advised against that. They had forewarned that the traffic problem is going to happen. There's not enough services. And this is their forecasts were dead on right. So in the future, we have a planning commission that examines this. They put a lot of hours and a lot of hard work into what they do. Maybe it's time that the city council does listen to them, listen to them before they leap.
Thank you. Joan?
George, I know it's a long question, but you listen to your colleagues here talk, and I think I've lost the central piece of the question.
Oh, okay. Well, the question is basically that in the past, developers have driven the look of Tumwater, and those office buildings on Capitol Way and Tumwater Boulevard are a good example. So what would you do on council to ensure that future development is driven by council and not to developers?
It's interesting that we're saying that that look is driven by developers, and yet we've been hearing here that Tumwater is not open to development, and I've actually never heard that before. We do have a planning commission. We also have a community development department. We also have codes and regulations. We have to realize that this area has been, as far as jobs is concerned, very, very state-driven. Very much about offices, and very much about a sense of where they're going to be. And I think that Tumwater wanted to develop. Developers wanted to use this land in that kind of way, and we, before I was on the council, were okay with that. And I think what happened was it got carried away, and there are not supporting retail businesses to attract people. And the idea that we're going to have support all of these offices or developments with people living in Tumwater needs to be an idea that we move away from. It could be part of it, but we need to figure out how those developments can move us into some supportive businesses.
Thank you. Debbie?
Actually, those office buildings was the exact reason why I pursued being on the Planning Commission. My home used to be abutting a beautiful field with trees and deer, and now I look out into a parking lot where the people who are working there can look into my dining room while I'm getting ready in the morning. So that kind of instilled for me to get involved in the Planning Commission. I think that when that was all done, I think that people had a misconception that if you build it, they'll come, that they'll just infill with these other things. And unfortunately, the people didn't move to Tumwater, and the restaurants didn't come, and the services didn't come. You have to diversify. I think there was too much of one thing. There was too many state buildings all close together, and so diversifying is an important step to doing this. I think Tumwater has a significant number of state buildings, including towards the freeway where you get L&I and the others. So I think we need to seriously, and now we have one that's not been finished, and I think that it's not just a given that provides jobs. So again, we need to look smarter and diversify, and that's something I've looked at since being on the Planning Commission, is making sure that the city of Tumwater is diversified.
Thank you. Voters recently approved a levy increase to fund police and fire. So do you see any other opportunities for upgrades or improvements that might need to go before the voters? And we're back to you, Debbie.
Well, I wouldn't think so at this time. I think that Citizens One would not even probably take it under consideration. That would be separate from anything that would have to do with school. The school board and those would have to make their own determination. But I think at this point in time, we have sewer rate increases, we have water rate increases. I think that this, I cannot think of anything pressing that would require that. I do know that public safety was way behind the times in getting funded. So I wouldn't see something right at the moment.
Okay, Joan, how about you?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the citizens of Tumwater who took this particular proposition and levy Lidliff very seriously. And however narrowly it passed, and I feel tremendously grateful and responsible to spend that money for the things that we have said that we would. And I agree, I don't think there's any pressing thing that we would need to put forth at this time. And I think we were very fortunate that people supported this and trusted us to make their lives safer and to use these monies wisely. And I'm committed to that, to the staffing, additional staffing of the North End Fire Station, and also to the expansion of our police department and adding more police in on the streets of Tumwater. And I think as we move forward with that, we will begin to see the next steps. But I don't see it right in the forefront.
Thank you. Over to you, Dave.
Well, that's more of a question for somebody sitting on the council than a candidate from the outside looking in. But as a candidate from the outside looking in, no, I cannot see anything that we need to increase taxes on whatsoever. And since Prop 1 passed by such a narrow margin, I don't think any other one would pass.
Okay. Ed.
Well, I mean, narrow margin was a commanding 8 votes. It was nearly a groundswell towards the end. Well, clearly, we had neglected because of other funding issues, public safety over the years, particularly the staffing of the North End Fire Station, increased medical emergency services, expansion of the very woefully inadequate police station. And so I think having done that, I don't foresee any possibility that we would need to go back to the voters for any increases for certainly the foreseeable future, many years down the road.
Okay. Let's stick with the financial questions. The city recently went to a biennial budget. What do you see as the positives or the negatives of budgeting on a 2-year basis?
Well, that came about as a result of our hiring John Doan as our city administrator away from the city of Sumner. And he had pointed out that in that city and other locations that had gone to a biennial budget, that forecasting was made much simpler when you can project ahead what your income and expenses are very likely to be over the ensuing period of time, rather than coming back and revisiting the issue every year. So I was an avid supporter of that concept. It seems to be working well, and I guess time will tell down the road, but I believe that that's an idea whose time has come.
Okay. Dave.
Well, again, another question that an outsider probably has no idea on. But I will say this, the Budget Committee and Mr. Doan and Mayor Komet, if that's their decision to go to a biannual budget, then if it's going to work out better, great. And if it doesn't work out, we can always go back to the way it was.
Joan?
Well, I've served the last 3 years on that Budget Committee, and it was under the leadership of Mayor Komet and our new city administrator, John Doan, that we moved in that direction. I think one of the positives of the budget is the more of a long-term forecast, and every single year we won't be doing all of the arduous and at times nitpicking work to write a budget every single year. We just started it, so we're just in year 1 of the budget, and we're having a meeting, in fact, next week. But I think one of the things it's going to possibly demand of us is that those of us who are on city council, as they do in the legislature, is to come back with possible amendments and to see. It moves some of the responsibility to us to see where are the budget issues, where are we spending, where do we need to adjust, how does that fit into a 2-year process instead of just 1. So I'm looking forward to my own and others' leadership in these budgeting issues.
Thank you. Debbie?
Well, I myself think it was a good idea. I think it reflects more what businesses do with their budgets. They usually have longer term budgets, and they can even go up longer than 2 years, even in 3 to 5 year budget plans. And I think it gives you an opportunity to make long-range goals. And if there is issues, there is ways to amend the budget or to relook at things if some source of revenue is, not available in the future, or such as taxes, those kinds of things. If you have other areas, but I think it gives you more of a perspective, and it's a model that businesses have used for a long time.
Okay, this is going to be the last question. So I'll give you a little initial nod at around the 1 minute mark so you can time your closing remarks if you so wish. The city is updating its Shoreline Master program. Have you read through the draft, and if so, what are some of the challenges you see in terms of property development? And we're starting with you, Debbie.
Well, that's actually very funny because the Planning Commission is in the middle of this. We've been in the middle of it for approximately 6 months, and this last Thursday we actually held an open house. We will be holding a public hearing shortly on this. One of the areas that I think will be a difficult area is on non-conforming uses. I was expecting a little bit more input on the open house that we had because, for instance, Barnes Lake is now new to the shoreline protection ordinances, and so I have a feeling that there'll probably be some non-conforming issues with that area. So we're going to really need to look at that. We're working really hard to make sure that what we're doing on the Planning Commission does not negatively affect the redevelopment of the brewery property. We want to make sure that we do that appropriately to fit the state requirements and still make that viable for redevelopment, so we don't put in additional roadblocks that could possibly be there. And were we supposed to do closing statements also? Great. So I would again like to thank everyone for this opportunity to speak. I feel I bring a good variety of experience and background, both from public and private sector, and being on the Planning Commission, I know a lot of the issues in depth. I know what's coming to the City Council probably for the next 6 months to a year. I know a long history being on the Planning Commission since 2003. I am very familiar with a lot of the issues, so I feel I'm well qualified, and not being the incumbent, I would still be able to be effective right off the bat. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that we have a Shoreline Management Act, because from a recreational and environmental and a health aspect, as far as people out and about and along shorelines, it's a very good thing that Washington has this. And I am glad that we are updating it at a time when we are dealing with the brewery property, because preserving our riparian areas is a very, very important thing. And the addition of areas that come under the Shoreline Protection Act are extremely important, and it's a lot of work, and it's a very staff-intensive work. And Council has talked about this at our work sessions, and we'll be watching it closely. And Tumwater is, from, like I say, both a development and an environmental point of view, very involved in the whole process. One of the things I would like to say, I probably should read some of this because I get very excited about myself as a Tumwater City Council member and a leader in this community. And I wanted to say that during my leadership over these past 4 years on the council, it's not what I'm going to do for you, but it's what I'm doing right now. And I listed a few of those things. Making public safety a priority, so increasing the staffing in the north end and putting more police in schools and on the night streets. I'm also working to make the Tumwater Brewery visioning plan a reality by redeveloping that property, revitalizing our neighborhoods. And I'm working also on continuing the city's financial health, which we heard today from our city administrator, that our financial health is cautiously stable. And I'm proud of that.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, that's going to come down to an honesty issue for me, because I have to admit I have not read the Shoreline Master Plan. My wife has, and it was on my reading list for this weekend. I thumbed through it. I didn't see any highlights or scribbles or notes in the columns, so it must be okay. As I read through it, if I do have a problem with it or I do have a question with it, I think I have an in with a lot of the city officials. I could just jump on the phone and get them answered right away. And as far as the open house, that was my out also, but work called first, so I was unfortunately detained. So in closing, we've had a lot of questions tonight, and I want to thank the audience for showing up. It's always nice to see more people sitting in those chairs than just me and my wife during the city council meetings. And thank you for putting on this forum. You have two choices to vote for on your ballot this election day, and it's pretty rare in the city of Tumwater that you actually do have a choice on your ballot. So you can choose Dave Rates for change, or you can choose Ed Stanley. He's served you very well for 16 years if you don't want change. Regardless of who you vote for, we need to get this voting percentage up. Can we get more than 20% turnout with our ballots? Can we get more than 30%? So regardless of who you vote for, please vote.
Thank you. And over to you, Ed, for the last word.
Well, echoing Debbie, I was here last week for the open house on the shoreline management changes, both as an interested person from the city of Tumwater's, council perspective, but also as a resident of Barnes Lake, which has now been added to that particular field of interest. Councilor Tom Oliva has been a terrific advocate for the lake, and we formed a lake management district, so it's being cleaned up and protected and saved for future generations. So I was hoping also there'd be more people from Barnes Lake there, but at least I was, and we can carry the message back to the other voters, the other constituents. I appreciate the opportunity to serve the citizens of this community. And I do believe that I am not for the status quo. I'm a change agent. For instance, obviously I've been endorsed by such disparate groups as the Thurston County Democrats and then the conservative, more Republican-based realtors. Most of the local unions and the Washington State and Thurston County conservation voters. Conservation and protection of the environment is always my #1 priority. And everything else, we work around that somehow. But I've had a great opportunity to serve and look forward to continuing to do so, and delighted to have met Dave along the campaign trail. He's a great guy, and I think he'd be a good council member too, but I hope you vote for me since I'm also here. So thank you very much. Look forward to it. And thank you again for having us.
Yes. Right, thank you. So, it's not easy to sit up here. And it's not easy to make the time for public service, but let's give our candidates a big round of applause.
Yeah, well ourselves.
And just in closing, I want to thank all the Tumwater citizens for coming out tonight. The ballots are coming out on October 20th, I believe, for the November 19th, October 19th for the November 8th general election. And I urge you all to vote because, arguably, these are the people that make the decisions that most closely affect your lives. So thank you on behalf of the Olympian and TCTV, and we'll see you next week in Lacey. Thank you.
You made it on time.